I'm Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez, Chair of the committee. Mr. Litt, if you'd please call the roll.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Blumenfield. Councilmember McOsker.
Here.
Okay, 2 present.
Okay. And before we move to public comment, this is where I would normally talk about the plan for all of the items, but with only one item on today's agenda, I think we are going to have an opportunity for a robust discussion. And so with that, we can go ahead and move to public comment. Mr. Swigger, if you could please read the rules. For the
Yes, members of the public who wish to speak on the agenda item, which there is one, shall have 1 minute to speak on the item. There'll be no general public comment as this is a special meeting.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Blumenfield, for the record, has joined our meeting. Thank you. And now we will go ahead and commence with public comment, beginning with Abigail Rubtosva, Alejandra Guerrero, Bricia Gutierrez, Daniel Busuano. Oh, over there.
Okay, well, good
There you
morning,
go.
everyone.
Can you start her minute, please? Go back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Alejandra Guerrero, and I'm a constituent here in the city of Los Angeles. I come to this conversation not only as someone who works and is active in this space, but as someone with lived experience in the foster care system. I know firsthand what it's like to be a young person disconnected from school and work. I know I now serve on a youth advisory council that is deeply passionate about improving the education and workforce systems for young people who are system impacted, and that is the lens that I bring today. I've also been working with the Alliance for Children's Rights for the past year, and I would have never been able to have found that position if it wasn't for the many programs that were able to support me as I grew into a successful young person, helping me pursue a bachelor's degree and feeling my passion to give back to my community. These opportunities matter. The decisions being made now will shape the future young people have, and making sure that young people have the same chances that I did is extremely important. I urge you all to take a step back today and engage with the voices of the community, especially young people's voices who will be most affected in your decision making. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Good morning, council members. My name is Bricia Gutierrez, and I'm here to urge you to protect Los Angeles's commitment to young people by keeping both the Youth Development Department and the Economic and Workforce Development Department as independent, standalone departments. We need departments with dedicated leadership, leaders who wake up every day thinking about how to bring more opportunities to our youth and workers. Los Angeles has built the largest youth workforce system in the country with 14 youth source centers serving thousands of opportunity youth each year. That didn't happen by accident. It took vision, coordination, and decades of partnership with schools, community orgs, and city champions. We can't afford to dilute or erase that progress. Economic opportunity starts now, and young people need departments that are laser focused on designing a future with and for them. Please keep the Youth Development Department and the Economic and Workforce Department strong, visible, and independent. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Abigail Rubtsova Henderson. I'm here with the Opportunity Youth Collaborative. I standing before you with a foster youth with 11 years in the foster care system and now a transition age youth entering the workforce at age 22. I urge the council to pause and evaluate the effects of this consolidation. This is an extremely precarious time where federal cuts are threatening the livelihood and well-being of vulnerable communities, and especially the vulnerable youth within them. Youth deserve to be invested in, and the time to do so is now. Cutting employers and funding is taking away from the rightful opportunities youth deserve, not only those opportunities, but the funding to make sure that those opportunities are authentically engaging with youth and taking the proper time and resources to make sure to fill in the gaps and improve the disheartening statistics that we are already seeing in the community. So when you cut departments like YDD and EWDD, you aren't just cutting programs, you're cutting futures. Thank you.
Daniel Busuano Henry, Juliana Rodriguez, Jacqueline Iniguez, Jennifer V, No? Oh,
Is your name called? No, you go ahead.
Good morning, council members. Sorry, my voice is a little lost today. My name is Jacqueline Iniguez. I'm policy manager with the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. The chamber is concerned that the projected cost savings from reducing the general manager positions from each department will offset the loss of effective leadership and critical institutional knowledge. Our business members are concerned about losing the continuity with current EWD points of contact and the risk of delays in payments or communications that could disrupt program operations. If the consolidation moves forward, we just urge the city to prioritize continued investment in youth programs, ensure the Advance Delay plan remains supported for the older workforce, and preserve dedicated local business support functions. The Chamber respectfully requests that the city have clear communication, transparency, and accountability essential to avoid service disruptions for workers, employers, and community members throughout this process. Thank you for your time and consideration.
thank you. Hi, your name?
Henry. I want to thank the brave young people that came up and spoke today. And it's an important item where it's an item discussing money. And yet here we have at the podium one key person missing, and that's the city controller, because the city controller actually audits the money that the city is spending. How can you have a item discussing big ticket money budget related tasks and you don't even have a representative from the city controller's office? How can you guarantee that fraud, waste, and abuse is properly being held to account? There's a proper oversight body where, first of all, it's not even enshrined in the city charter. And the CAO doesn't even hold a CPA license. He's not a money guy.
Can you stick to the item, please?
That is relevant, and I'm making an analogy here. You're trying to cut out services for these people, and on the record, Kenneth Mejia has talked about these same programs in the CAO's office not being compliant and helping them with audits. Why is Kenneth Mejia not here to talk about this?
Thank you. Lori Collier and Sherry Bradford. And if there was anyone else whose name I didn't call that you wanted to offer public comment, please feel free to come up and introduce yourselves. Hi. Your name, please?
Good morning. My name is Lori Collier. I'm with the Alliance for Children's Rights, and this is my third time speaking on this issue, so I'll be direct. We're talking about consolidation as if it's automatically an improvement, but we still have no evidence from Los Angeles or any other comparable city that separating economic and workforce development will produce better outcomes. What we do know is that when workforce is pulled away from employers and industry, systems weaken. Cities like Chicago, San Diego, and Detroit tried this and ended up with a fragmented system, weaker employer pipelines, and costly reversals. Nothing presented suggests Los Angeles would avoid these same pitfalls. And this matters even more now with the Olympics, World Cup, and major infrastructure jobs coming. This is the moment to strengthen alignment, not risk disruption. Collaboration with social services is essential, and EWDD already works deeply with county agencies. Employment and housing absolutely belong together, but through collaboration, not through consolidation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, that concludes public comment. Thank you all so much. And Mr. Litt, if you would, since we only have one item, if you would please call that item into the record.
Certainly. Joint CAO and CLA and Community Investment for Families Department reports relative to the proposed consolidation of the Departments of Aging, Community Investment for Families, Economic and Workforce Development, and Youth Development, and the feasibility of a standalone Economic Development Department.
Thank you. And so we are being joined, and thank you, CAO, CLA, and EWDD at the table today. And I know you each have some items, but Chris, can you please give us a brief overview of the report dated December 2nd regarding the feasibility of a standalone Economic Development Department?
Thank you, council members. Chris Espinosa from the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. Before you is a joint report from the CAO CLA dated December 2nd.
And if I could, for the public, for members of the public, just to underscore, I know we had previous conversations in the joint committee So I just want to make sure everyone is aware that we're just focusing today on the conversation around the December 2nd report that was the joint CLA CAO. Since that part was already discussed in Creed, this is focusing on the economic workforce development piece.
Okay, thank you. Before you is a joint report from the CAO CLA, and what we are doing is looking at an Economic and Workforce Development Department transmittal, and that was dated November 20th. And what they did was they proposed a standalone Economic Development Department. Essentially, that department would be 41 positions and about $11 million in expenditures. What if you were to move forward with such a department, you would be foregoing about $1.4 million worth of projected savings for next fiscal year, and then approximately $2.8 million to retain approximately 11 administrative staff that would be needed to support the department. The department, as you know, is currently codified in the administrative code. And so the proposal would also be to transfer over the workforce functions over to the consolidated department and retain the Economic Development Department as a standalone department. Our offices recommended moving forward with the consolidation as we had received previous council direction to look at consolidation and to try to achieve budgetary savings. Thank you very much.
Okay, and so Fred, can you give us an overview of your report and on the report that is in attachment A of the, go over attachment A.
Sure. Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today in response to the amendment directing the preparation of feasibility assessment for a standalone economic development department. EWDD's leadership has developed a focused and data-driven evaluation of how the city might best structure an economic development function to support near-term fiscal responsibility and long-term economic growth. The report will summarize that I will summarize intends to present a viable data-driven alternative policy option that supports the city's broader goals of economic growth, investment attraction, business support, and neighborhood revitalization, while also offering a clear pathway to streamline citywide economic development activities under a unified leadership structure. My remarks are summarized in 4 elements of our report. First, the existing operational platform. Second, the proposed structure and programmatic activity portfolio of the department. Third, a projected cost of staffing. And finally, a preliminary funding and revenue strategy to support the sustainability and growth of the department. Under the existing operational platform, recent performance by the department includes through our Business Source Center, we have assisted and provided access to capital to close to over $25 million to businesses throughout the city through our Business Source Center. We have enrolled close to 1,700 businesses through our Business Source Center, outreach to well over 10,000 businesses through the Business Source Center as well. Enrolled over 700 businesses through our Legacy Business Program. 400 businesses have received legal assistance through our program, and that this year alone. Over the last, since the pandemic from 2020 to 2024, we have distributed well over $105 million to businesses through business recovery grants and dispersed over $4.1 million in facade improvement grants through our JEDI program. Through our real estate program and group, we have increased the value of approximately $20 million over the last 5 years. And these are operational, the proposed standalone department we intend to continue moving forward. Building upon the current operations of the division, the standalone department would focus on a few different areas. One, industry and sector development strategies, city-owned economic development and real estate, business financing and lending tools, major event economic strategy, place-based economic development planning, and a dedicated revenue and strategic partnership. In addition to that, as Chris has indicated, we projected the first year operating costs for a standalone department of roughly $11 million, consisting of $6.8 million in direct costs and $4 million in related costs. A total staffing of 41 positions and retaining a lot of the senior management and staff for the standalone department. The fourth element would be increasing funding diversification over time through accelerating revenue generating activities. One of those would be looking at rental and leasing fees, property disposition, aggressively pursuing new grants, foundations, and other donations. And then also in the short term, looking at cost savings and identifying disposition opportunities, as I mentioned before. And that summarizes the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to delineate, and well, first of all, and I apologize, I wanted to thank the folks that came out for public comment, especially for the young people, and I know many of them weren't able to all join today, because this has been particularly hard and heartbreaking for me in particular. But there is so much that we are confronting, and what infuriates me at this juncture, where we are as a city, where we are as a country, these are not the moves. These are not the moves that I think are well-intentioned for helping to support the very people that are most fragile and being most impacted. And we're seeing it across our city and across the country. So I just wanted to address that with you, because there's, you know, all the fights to try and protect, and I'm still committed to that work and making sure that that doesn't become subservient to something else. But we also have an obligation to make sure that we're trying to protect as much as we can in this crisis that we're in. And I wanted to thank you all for all of your efforts coming forward, and all of the partnership that you have been and the strong voice that you have been throughout this entire process. I want to thank you for that, because this is the worst part of the job, just so you understand. And so thank you, Fred. I apologize that I wanted to address them earlier. Can you, for the purposes of my colleagues, help to delineate the functionality of what you're talking about with economic development versus what we're talking about in the consolidation with work source centers, business source centers versus work source centers, so that everyone, for the audience that doesn't quite understand that there's an explicit delineation between the two and the functionality of what they provide in our communities, so that everyone understands and aren't conflating the roles or the work or the individuals involved in the work that they do.
Thank you for the question. So within the Economic and Workforce Development Department, there's two divisions, Economic Development and Workforce Development. The Workforce Development operates 14 work source centers throughout the city. And the Workforce Department has a number of different programs that supports employees and job seekers to obtain job skills, to find livable pathways.
So they would provide, for example, resume writing and some of that.
Correct. Resume writing, interview skills, how to prepare and show up at an interview, and those sorts of skill sets to become employed.
Right.
On the economic development side and our business source centers, there's 10 business source centers throughout the city as well, operated by different operators to assist businesses with everything from establishing a business, developing and further developing and finding your concept, developing a business plan, assisting with accounting, assisting with marketing, assisting with your legal and contracts. And so it's a little more, it's quite different in terms
substantially different.
In terms of the services that are provided by the Work Source Center versus the Economic Development and Business Source Center, excuse me.
Right. And so, and I want to thank you, because my colleagues may not be aware, but together we just launched the third round of micro enterprise grants that are currently offering for those micro enterprises, business owners of 5 employees or less, up to $15,000 grants, security grants that you all stood up,
Right.
and that are being offered through the business source centers, and that is actually helping citywide a number of small business owners that, frankly, we know right now they're struggling and are even more adversely impacted by some of the criminal activity that we've seen increase across the city. So, and that was something that you all were able to stand up.
Yes, we were. And similarly, during the fires, our business source centers and other disasters, the business source centers has been there to assist businesses with applying for federal grants through the SBA and others. And we also assist during our various grant programs. The business source centers are there to assist small businesses and others to apply for the various grants and programs that we have throughout the city.
Right. And I know you've been effective, for example, in Pacoima, helping to connect a lot of the businesses in my community with a number of grant opportunities that otherwise they would be left to their own devices to have to figure out throughout the city to identify what might be helpful for them, or connecting them with some of those important resources. So thank you. I just wanted to delineate, because a lot of people conflate the work of a business source center and a work source center, and they couldn't be more different in terms of the audience that they serve and the functionality and important role that they play to help support small businesses across the city, and especially in under-resourced communities. That is even more critically important. And so at a time when we are in such financial constraints, I worry about the potential impact of the support that this city will be able to offer those very same entities that need to identify how to leverage every resource that might be available to them if we don't have that gateway for them. So I'm concerned about that. The report indicated that a standalone department is too small to sustain itself, that a proposed economic development department would face additional challenges because it would be considered too small to be able to manage it properly. However, there are 8 examples in the city that are smaller than what EWDD would be proposing as a standalone economic development function. What about this proposed department makes it more problematic than one of the other smaller departments like EMD, which is almost relying completely on the general fund? My understanding on the economic development side, that would be primarily funded how?
So a couple of things. One, we are retaining all of our staff. And so on the programmatic side of the Economic Development Division. And in terms of the funding sources, we would be funded by the general fund, of course. And then there are funds from CDBG, Community Development Block Grant Program Administrative Funds, as well as have an Economic Development Trust Fund, and within, as I mentioned earlier, pursue grants and other revenue generation opportunities to fund staffing for the department.
So Chris, can you opine and contribute on that? What would make this more problematic?
Well, the positions that they're seeking to retain are higher level positions. And the reason for that is that they want positions that are going to be well-seasoned, knowledgeable individuals who are going to be able to stand up the department. So if you notice, some of the admin positions are high-level positions. They retain 2 assistant general managers. So in order to launch their own department, they want to make sure that they have staff that are well-seasoned and are able to execute on the programs.
And so again, how many positions are currently at the 8 smaller departments versus what EWDD is proposing? in terms of a standalone?
Well, I think Shred may have about, Civil and Human Rights Department may have about 27 positions. El Pueblo, a very small department, about 10 positions. And oftentimes, those small departments have issues about staff retention. Sometimes you don't have staff members wanting to transfer over to vacant positions over there because there's little ability to move up the ranks within a very small department. So you'll get a position to fill a vacancy, and then they'll stay for a little bit and move on to other departments where they can get higher pay through taking tests and moving up the ranks.
And so I guess for me, some of my concern, and thank you for showing again what we're talking about as a city and what we're talking about in consolidation in terms of garnering greater efficiencies. We're not really talking, we're not really focusing on where we can actually garner greater efficiencies in some of the departments. If we're talking about scale and size and operations, we're not really having a full conversation. We're having a very targeted one. And my concern is that as the way this has all kind of happened, and Bob and you and I've had conversations about this, the way this has all happened, this is my concern for members of the public and everyone that listens, and I've used this example many times before. It's better to measure twice and cut once. Something my dad taught me a long time ago when we were doing carpentry work. Because you can't, once you mess it up, if you cut it too short or you cut it, better to cut it long, because at least you can cut it back some. But if you cut it too short, you've ruined it. And you got to start from scratch. And my concern is that if we cut some of the fundamental functions of what we need to operate as a city to help support and meet the business community and the needs for greater economic development, for greater tax revenue generation, for greater support for this business community that our service delivery in the city of Los Angeles is wholly reliant upon. I worry about some of the decisions that we're making without taking into full context about what the implications are going to be, how we can be better suited and structured as a city to make sure that we're meeting those needs. But more importantly, we've been forced into this conversation and directed into this conversation, but we've ignored some of the other very glaring pieces of other smaller departments. And it begs the question, what is their functionality and purpose and role in helping to meet the needs of today? Fred, can you tell us how many staff members and programs are assigned to each of the AGMs, specifically the workforce and economic development AGMs?
For the economic development AGM, which I was, there are 33 staff under the economic development division. Under the workforce division, there's approximately 60, I believe, staff for workforce.
So, I'm sorry, 60?
60, yes.
Okay. And under CIFD's proposal, it would consolidate all of the portfolios under one AGM?
Correct.
Okay. And so the way I see it, splitting economic development to stand on its own has an important benefit to the rest of EWDD's consolidation under CIFD, because you allow both sides of the house to retain large workloads, but retain the different skill sets that are required to help service the needs of each of the respective audiences that they serve. And so by keeping an economic development arm separate, we're able to right-size the workload and the ability for us to actually have potentially a legitimate, functional economic development arm for this city, which is something that I think every other large city in the United States has, certainly here in California. So by moving forward with the Economic Development Department and expanded CIFD department, we could better prioritize both. We could ensure that we actually are still able to chart a path forward that supports the economic development needs that we have in this city, but also concurrently allowing the efficiencies that are hoped to be achieved by this consolidation and garnered in that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to allow you all to ask your questions to folks, and go ahead, Bob.
Okay. You know, we're looking at this as I'm seeing what this proposal is. We're sort of splitting up the current economic development department and consolidating part of it and keeping part of it. Is that an accurate way to look at it? How does that and I mean, part of this whole thing is frustrating me. I feel in many ways like we're moving the deck chairs around on the Titanic, and we have much bigger problems in terms of how we move forward and our economic development and all these issues, but we have to deal with what we have to deal with, and anything we can do to make it more efficient, great. That doesn't change the fact that we have some fundamental changes we need to do around economic development in particular. But I want to make sure I understand it too. So under the proposal, the administration of the CDBG money, I gather that one of the advantages of the consolidation is to have that all under one roof. Would that still be under one roof, or would that now be segmented? How would that
It would still
work?
be, I mean, CIFD still would administer the program, but a number of those activities are funded to Economic Development Department. And so they would still retain and use some of those funds, up to 2.4 million.
So we'd be using some of those funds, but the contracting, because part of it is consolidating the contracting makes some sense to me.
Yeah, I'll let you.
But it also makes sense to me to have a focus on economic development. So how would that, and the other piece of all this is the fundamental problem is that the walls of these departments are too difficult to, like we've siloed our city too much. We shouldn't be having these issues on departments so much if people actually were more collaborative and it was one city instead of departmental silos. Like that's really should be, it's an artificial distinction, but be that as it may, that's what we're dealing with. So help me understand, would we be losing an aspect of the advantage of the consolidation, of the administration of the CDBG money under one roof? Or would that we'd still have that advantage? What would be the downside and what would be the upside in terms of the spin-off with the Economic Development Department?
Good morning, Yolanda Chavez with the CAO. So the administration of CDBG would still have to stay with CIFD because they're the grantee for CDBG. But some of that money for admin and maybe program delivery would be provided to this standalone economic development department. I would state that we do lose the advantages with the consolidation in terms of the leveraging and the savings that we were anticipating. And
what do you mean by the leveraging?
Or the leveraging of their administrative resources, because the benefit of a larger department is that they are able to share the administrative cost across programs. The way this department is being proposed with the 41 positions, it's very top heavy, it's very admin heavy, and really lacks the program staff that it would need to do everything they would intend to do under this scenario. I think, and I agree, I think it's really critical the city have a strong economic development department or division, whatever that may be, but it needs to be sourced correctly. And 41 positions, again, that lack sort of the number of program staff that you would need for all of the goals that are included in this proposal, it's not sufficient. You also need funding to be able to initiate economic development.
Well, so it sounds like maybe, as my colleague says, we don't want to throw away the whole structure because then it's much harder to recreate. But maybe if we move forward with something, as we move into the budget process of this year, that we could actually properly design new department. If we eliminate it, there's nothing to design or to properly fund. But if we keep it, or keep this portion of it and consolidate the work source centers and the parts that you made the good point about consolidating, then don't we have the opportunity over the next few months to right size and scale and I would say focus? Because the other piece is that I don't want us to just do the economic development that we have been doing and just say we're going to continue to do what we've been doing. I actually want to see us do what we were starting to do pre-COVID and putting together a strategic plan and being proactive. Other cities are eating our lunch on this stuff. And so there's a whole host of things I want to see an economic development department do that we're not doing. And some of the things that we are doing, but like the tax credit issues, like on the Reseda Theater that we're trying to work together. I mean, we need the expertise on that aspect of economic development. We need a focused team that is saying, when there is economic opportunities, that's luring in businesses to serve our area, which is I do see as a different function than sort of the social service umbrella that we have with all the other functions, which are super important. And I could see under Ms. Marcus being really well run and sort of having the economies of scale contracted out together. That makes a lot of sense to me. But I don't want to, I also don't want to lose, and what my colleague is talking about, that ability to have a laser focus on economic development, because, you know, more revenue means more money for social services and everything else. And so I guess the question is, if we move something like this forward, we don't have to be stuck in this model, right? I mean, the mayor's developing the proposal now. I would hope maybe there's a way to move something like this forward, but then right size it and right focus it over the course of the next few months, so that it's not just the vestiges of EDD. It is sort of a new entity, a new focus, and we can consolidate what needs to be consolidated, the work source centers, et cetera, but take this new department to a new level of actually doing what I think many of us envision them doing that hasn't happened in the last couple.
So I guess I would say that the consolidation, as recommended in this report, that the CAO and CLA are recommending that we move forward. The consolidation does not eliminate any of these economic development programs, and it wouldn't prevent the division, whatever it becomes within a consolidated department, to continue to expand its economic activities and be able to work in a larger department to leverage additional CDBG opportunities like Section 108 loans, right? So the consolidation does not prevent the department from doing any of this work or doing new work and being more creative on economic development. That does not prevent that. Our concern is standalone is not sourced correctly. We're just going to end up in the same place, right? So unless we can
what do you mean by that? It's not sourced
well, so the current proposal, 41 positions, again, very top-heavy, admin-heavy, and actually there are less program staff that they're currently in the division based on this proposal, would really not be able to do all of this work that is envisioned, right? I mean, there's work that's going on now, but there's a lot in the report proposed by the team that includes a lot of new economic development proposals, right?
Which is what we want. We want strong economic development proposals.
And I totally agree. But with this type of staffing and resources, and the revenue sources are really not there. We have to be honest. As we look at new revenue sources, there aren't that many properties we're going to dispose of. There's the revenue is really not there. And when you talk about new market tax credits, well, the LADF is a staffed organization. It's a city nonprofit that has a staff that does that. So they're independent from EWD and will continue to work with the city to fund mixed-use projects or the Reseda Theater, commercial properties that support city economic development. But again, that's a different entity. So in looking at their proposed revenue sources, we don't think that can support this type of economic development activities, but maybe with a larger department and being able to leverage the resources within that, maybe you can. Again,
So I need to,
not that we don't believe the city should have a strong economic development department, but if we cannot provide the resources, it's going to be very tough for an economic development department to survive and be successful.
so Yolanda, you made a lot of assumptions about the ability to garner revenue generation based on, I think, what is an antiquated, we're talking about trying to forge a path forward that would actually strengthen this work. And the problem is you're deriving it from an old paradigm. Now, what I wanted to ask, EWDD, you just completed a 5-year strategic plan, correct?
We are in the process, and if I can, just to go back a little bit, since Councilmember Blumenthal mentioned, there was an citywide comprehensive economic development strategies that was developed in 2019. And as soon as that was printed, it became obsolete due to to COVID.
Right.
And so that is the advanced vision of delivering economic development strategies and programming for the city, which we never implemented because it was obsolete due to COVID. As a result, the department pivoted and responded to COVID. And so that's when we launched several different grant programs and issued and provided well over $100 million in grants to small businesses. That's when we launched LA Optimize, which we found during the pandemic, a lot of businesses did not return because they didn't have a digital footprint or presence. And so that program assisted them in that aspect. Our legal program and so many other programs have been in response to COVID. We are just now, Councilmember Rodriguez, launching the new SEDS, Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies report, which we have reached out to you all's offices to have some initial meetings about stakeholders in your individual council districts. And we'll be having meetings with industry, association and trade associations as we kick off this new vision of delivering economic development for the city going forward.
I did want to mention that, work program success is based on also leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And all city departments are underfunded for the most part. And some are able to succeed and do some great work off a little bit of money. And so how you build your team and focus and support from leadership of the city council, the mayor, can produce incredible results. So, we do recommend, and we have recommended for the consolidation, but this could be a viable proposal if supported by the council and the mayor.
So thank you, Chris. And I just wanted to note, because in the conversation in reference to CDBG and, everyone's resources are being depleted. CDBG is also being depleted. And there's more than one department that derives its support from CDBG dollars. So I don't want it to get conflated or misrepresented about what their viability is based on that, because the reality is that we just cited multiple examples of other departments who frankly don't provide core service that the city relies on for a strength, whether we're talking about civil human rights, whatever smaller department you want to point out. We have many other examples that are not being part of a conversation about consolidation or at this time. So what we're trying to do is provide and preserve some important core functions that are material to ensuring that we could have the right technical experts that we need to support economic development in the city. And that's what we're talking about. So, Tim?
Thanks. Thank you very much. Really appreciate this conversation. I think it'll keep moving forward to the council. The economic development function of any city is so critically important. And I feel that through no fault, except maybe the structural fault that was created by mayors and council members currently and before us, we don't do a great job in economic development. We don't do the job that we can do. We do heroic work, you know, with the people that we have, with the funding that we have, but can do a lot more. And I think all of this acknowledges that. My experience is that, you know, I go back to the time when I first came to the city, and we had a CDD department where it was all combined. And we advised in the city attorney's office, the CDD department, and then the mayor's office. We worked with CDD, and we followed Mayor Reardon, who, just ironically, sort of an interesting side note, didn't believe in putting out CDBG money because it was, you know, he thought everybody that got it was poverty pimps. That was actually a word he used. And we spent a lot of time with the CDD department to get that money out the door. And remember Lillian Kawasaki, God rest her soul, she cared a lot about economic development. And it was a one-stop shop. And I was at a distance, so it's unfair for me to fully comment, but I was at a distance. I was outside City Hall representing folks, you know, in and around the government. And I remember the breakup of basically the community development block grant function and economic development, and wondered why. And people can unpack that, and everyone will have their own story. But I thought, why would you divorce a department that I thought was intricately intertwined, that needed to be intertwined? I realize the CDBG does go out to other departments, but the economic development, both on the, you know, job, the job creation or the job readiness, and on the small business and medium-sized business economic development, are really, really tied to CDBG. It just is. So that's the source of funding. And so I'm having trouble wondering why we would further divorce the functions, because it does really feel like, you know, cutting that board too short. So my sense is that I do appreciate, and I've been really critical of some of the CIO's recommendations in the recent past, but I do think the CIO's recommendation is the right one. And I also feel like our economic development function probably has to move towards more an additional model that other jurisdictions enjoy, of having a relationship with a private economic development corporation that sits to the outside of our government and works hand in glove with our government to move more rapidly and more effectively. Those are just my thoughts. It doesn't prevent us from having the discussion on the council floor, but I'm going to go with the CIO's recommendation.
Thank you. And, you know, for my part, one of the concerns that I have, Mr. McCosker, is we just saw this happen 2 days ago in Personnel and Hiring Committee, where, again, all of this conversation was born out of a budgetary decision. It was absent. It was the cart before the horse. It was budget directing the policy conversation, not the policy conversation directing the budget outcome. And so what we're watching now happen, just as we saw with the CAO's recommendation that endorsed that, with this Bureau of Homeless Oversight, now that's all getting redacted. So listen, I appreciate the CAO. They don't always get it right either. And so we are the policymakers that have to make sure that we measure twice and cut once, because we're watching real lives getting thrown together. I've watched multiple departments, from the consolidation from EWDD to CIFD, Department of Aging, and Youth Development. Everyone's lives, I don't know, work has almost stopped because everyone is just so focused on figuring out what's going to happen next. CAO's office staff was sitting there trying to figure out what was going to happen next in homelessness. And now 6 months later, oh, no, that's not going to happen because we realize it doesn't work. That's why you have policy conversations before you go cutting in budget. But that didn't happen. And so we're starting to realize the impacts of those kinds of expedited, thoughtless decisions. And in the end, The only ones that are suffering are not just the employees that are involved in helping to do this work, but the constituencies on the outside that desperately need a functional government to respond to their needs. And so, you know, these transfers and these consolidation proposals, they're not simple, and they're not without consequence. And that's what concerns me, is how so much of this has happened. But what, frankly, even more concerns me is the idea that we would take the one functional piece that is there to, you know, again, if we eliminate those roles and we start to double up people's workload to include many of the social service natured parts of the job, then we further erode the expertise and the attention to a functional economic development arm for our city at a time when we're gearing up for the Olympics, at a time when we're gearing up for FIFA, at a time when everyone is financially struggling from the business community. We're basically closing off that one accessible arm, which concerns me. And so, you know, the proposed staff moves, title reclassifications, all of those things, that kind of just contributes to the brain drain. We've already seen a lot of staff exit. We've seen a lot of that technical expertise that we've relied on. And so, you know, I'm taking and looking at all those lessons, because we're watching it happen in real time with the housing department. And I have real concerns, and I want to make sure that we are having a more robust conversation about how we can keep intact some of the functionality that we need, particularly during these very distressed economic times, for especially those in the business community in our city. And yes.
Thank you so much for letting me speak again. I think all that comes from a really great place, and I want to be really clear, because I want to be articulate about what my goal is here. But my position comes from one of making sure that we put as many dollars and as much function and expertise out to the deserving constituents in our communities as possible. And I could be wrong. I'm often wrong, but I'm always certain. I could be wrong about this, but I feel like the consolidation really has the effect of giving us the benefit of fewer dollars going to administration and more dollars going to line people, and giving us a greater chance of providing workforce development as well as, you know, business economic development in our communities. And again, that's the place I'm coming from. I'm not suggesting consolidation for the sake of consolidation, but the balkanization of our functions is one of the difficulties. When we you know, promise a lot to a bunch of different constituencies and break our government up into pieces, I feel like it's like divorce. You know, setting up two households probably is good for the two folks that can't live with each other, but it's not always great for the kids. And that's a gross, you know, analogy, but it's one that I really feel is true. And here, we could be putting a couple, you know, just a couple $1 million back into the system that can get out to the field. That's my thought. And again, I will acknowledge that I could be wrong about that, but that's where I'm coming from.
Well, I intend to try and prove that. So, you know, during the budgetary process, I had, the council actually supported my proposal for asset management functions going to economic development, so that we could better leverage the resources that we have, because that's another part of the problem that's sitting over with some of the assets that we have over at GSD.
Right.
And how do we maximize that? And so, again, going back to, we want to make sure that we're resourcing all of the functions that we need as a city to be done right. And my concern is that so much of this conversation has been primarily led by a budget instruction rather than a comprehensive policy discussion. And so what we're doing is trying to make it all fit now, because that was the top-down decision that was made without a comprehensive and deliberative policy conversation about how this city is going to function. And so I understand the fiscal realities of what we're going through, and I know there's a lot that we're struggling with right now. But Chris, I just have one question. Is the creation of a standalone economic development department feasible, in your opinion?
It's feasible. The council would need to put the resources to back it, and that's what our finding was that you will need to put money behind it in order to keep it going. And even then, it's thin. It's a thin department, but it's feasible.
It's like anything. We're either committed to it or we're not. Everything is only as feasible as we're willing to work towards achieving it. But if we do consolidation without really thinking about the consequences of what happens or how we actually, because you know what happens, Bob. You don't get it back. You can try, like you're losing the subject matter expertise. You're kind of moving things back and forth. I would like to make a recommendation so that we could engage colleagues in this conversation and really look at what look ahead. So I have an amendment that I'd like to note and file the Community Investment and Families Department report dated July 25th, 2025, and the CAO-CLA report dated October 22nd, December 2nd, 2025. Approve the consolidation of the Youth Development Department, Department of Aging, the Adult and Youth Workforce Divisions of the Economic and Workforce Development Department, EWDD, into CIFD, along with all the related documents, authority, and responsibilities, including but not limited to the development and administration of the city's Workforce Development Annual Plan. 3, approve and redesignate EWDD as the Economic Development Department that will continue to focus on citywide economic development functions, such as commercial corridor support, small business services, real estate development, and the implementation of economic development policies, including the oversight and comprehensive economic development strategy process, among other objectives as established by the mayor and council and consistent with LA Administrative Code, Chapter 30, Article 1, Section 22.1000. 4, request the city attorney, with the assistance of the CLA, CAO, Office of the City Controller, CIFD, YDD, Department of Aging, and the Adult and Youth Workforce Divisions of EWDD to prepare and present as soon as practicable, the necessary ordinances, amending all applicable sections of the LA Municipal Code and the LAAC to dissolve YDD and Department of Aging and amend the applicable sections of the LA Municipal Code and LA Administrative Code relative to EWDD to transfer only those sections pertaining to adult and youth workforce divisions to CIFD. Effectuate the transfer to CIFD relevant to administration and related responsibilities for all programs and services under YDD, Department of Aging, and the Adult Youth Workforce Divisions of EWDD, as well as the related documents, authority, and responsibilities, including but not limited to the development and administration of the city's Workforce Development Annual Plan, Community Action Plan, the 5-year Consolidated Plan, and the Annual Action Plan and Area Plan on Aging, and rename the CIFD as the Community Investment Department. 5, instruct CIFD to immediately establish a transition team to facilitate the proposed consolidation, consisting of but not limited to the following: CIFD, YDD, the Adult Youth Workforce Divisions of EWDD, Department of Aging, CAO, CLA, Mayor, Personnel, Controller, General Services, and ITA. 6, instruct the relevant departments to hold the following positions vacant for the duration of the fiscal year 25-26, or if currently filled, vacate the positions by June 30th, 2026. 1, EWDD Assistant General Manager, YDD Executive Director, Department of Aging, Executive Administrative Assistant 3, EWDD 2 Senior Project Coordinators, EWDD 1 Accounting Clerk, EWDD 3 Management Analysts, EWDD 3 Senior Project Assistants, EWDD 3 Project Coordinators, and CIFD 1 Senior Management Analyst 2. 7, adopt the staffing and operating budget as presented in Attachment A of the EWDD report entitled Streamlining Citywide Economic Development, Overview and Analysis of Proposed Standalone Economic Development Department dated November 20th, 2025, and include on the council file. 8, instruct CIFD in accordance with the 26-27 budget development process to submit to the mayor a budget proposal for the new consolidated department that supports the administration and related responsibilities for all programs and services administered by CIFD, YDD, Department of Aging, and the Adult Youth Workforce Divisions of EWDD. 9, instruct EWDD in accordance with the 26-27 budget development process to submit to the mayor a budget proposal for a standalone economic development department that supports the administration and related responsibilities for all programs and services consistent with LA Administrative Code, Chapter 30, Article 1, Section 22.1000, with exception of the Adult and Youth Workforce Development Divisions as outlined in Attachment A of the November 20th, 2025 EWDD report. 10, instruct the CAO and the Personnel Department to effectuate the functional transfer of positions in the YDD, Department of Aging, and Youth Workforce Divisions of EWDD to the Consolidated Department. 11, authorized by resolution, subject to the allocation by the Board of Civil Service Commissioners, the classifications listed below, effective concurrently with the establishment of the new Consolidated Department, which is 9278-0, Assistant General Manager, Executive Office, 9182-0, Chief Management Analyst of Youth Development Department, 9182-0, Chief Management Analyst, Senior Services, and 12, authorize the CAO to make corrections and or implement and or facilitate all necessary actions that may not be specified to establish the new consolidated department and redesignated Economic Development Department in accordance with the council's intent on this matter. And I'd ask for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
And can I say something? I mean, and I will second it, and I will vote to move this forward to the full council. I still am trying to get my head around a lot of this, but I want this, it's an important discussion to move forward, so I'm happy to do that and move it forward. A lot of this is really, it all depends on what we do in the budget and what the mayor proposes in the budget of how we want these things to look. Because we could do economic development in many different ways. It's all about how it's funded and what our focus is going to be on. But again, I'm going to spend some time to get my head around this, but in the meantime, enable us to move forward to the full council through an aye vote.
And I just want to say, I'll remain open. I'm going to vote no, but I'll remain open on the conversation. I make it to the full council. I think it's an important conversation.
It is.
What system delivers more to our constituents? And I'm happy to remain open on that conversation.
I appreciate that.
Okay, so we'll take the vote on that. Councilmember Rodriguez?
Aye.
Councilmember Blumenfield?
Aye.
Councilmember McOsker?
No, for now.
Very good.
Oh, it's for now.
Approved as amended.
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, members.